This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.
Yes, everybody, the tickets are going fast. September 19th and 20th. You know, we got that little conference going on. And I got to tell you, great response on that. In fact, the first hotel that we're staying at is already booked, you guys. And we still got, 6 months to go. So thank you for that. It's going to be a great time. 2-day event, a ghost hunt is planned. We've got over 20 featured guests and speakers. And everybody from our group will be there. Myself, the Blondes and Booze, Tex, Donnie Cho, Paranormal Paul, all us guys that you guys follow and watch on YouTube. So thank you for that. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube, Texas Front Porch, the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal Podcast on YouTube. Donnie Cho says stuff. Paranormal Paul. Monica Raw is our paranormal world. Check them all out. Josh Turner, PRT, amongst others. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on and sitting in with me at 6 in the evening where I'm at. For those of you on the West Coast, 3 p.m. And wherever you are around the world, I see Andy out in the UK is in here. Don't know what time that is, Andy. Maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Thanks for popping in. I saw your show. I caught a little bit of Andy's show earlier. Alien. Excuse me. Andy, I'm sorry. Alien 8 UK. Go check out Andy. He does a great job over there. Does a fantastic job. Don't forget tonight, the Super Chat's open. A great way to support what we all do around here. You also can become a BMR pirate. That's right. Thank you, mateys. Join the many, join the few, as I like to say, depending on your point of view. You get a little picture of me with sporting a bandana next to your name in the chat room. So I have a lot of fun with that. And I appreciate all you guys for contributing to that. I also have to thank everybody that does not participate into the chat room, because you guys do help drive the show, and you're just as important as our chatters. And we always get a nice churning with the folks in chat. One of the best chat rooms on the internet. Hi, Andres Carazola. Hello to everybody for coming in. Jason Finch, Andres, Roger Blair, my buddy Bigfoot Dwarf. I mentioned Andy earlier, Mickey G, Val from Pennsylvania. Scrolling up the list a little bit. Gary, hey, Pops, how you doing? A couple others popping in as we get this thing started here today. If I miss you, Sage, hi Sage, thanks. I'm glad you could catch a live as well. Moving down, moving up, moving down, wherever. Mike and Mark, hi Mike and Mark, thanks for popping in. Hey, Kaz, K-A-S, Kansas City Squatch, I think that is. Not sure, but again, thanks for everybody for coming in. I do appreciate the support for coming in. So for tonight, or this evening, wherever you're at, I guess, I do have a 3, I call this Dogman and Werewolf encounters in the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic regions. You know, when I come across these stories, I put werewolf sometimes I put Dogman, but a lot of time that's up for debate, right? I think they're two different things. And so some of these I can take as being a Dogman, some I can take as being possibly a werewolf. And I'm not going to get into a discussion on the differences. We do that on other shows. And speaking of the other shows, Tuesday night is more of my interview-driven show with Krista from the Blondes and Booze. That's every Tuesday night at 9 in the East. Thursday afternoon is myself and Tex. 1 in the afternoon, along sometimes with Brent Thomas, and we just kick back and talk all these weird things. And sometimes we have guests on that show. Now, Fridays, yes, I think this is becoming a staple every Friday between 6 and 6:30, depending when I get home. So it's Friday nights I do these encounter shows. And then, of course, Saturday night at 11, it's myself, Brandy, Krista, Monica, and sometimes Tex, and we do Beyond the Bizarre, or the Bizarre Show. Late night it is, and that's at 11. And that's a pretty cool variety type show. We still keep it weird. We still keep it strange for you guys. So thank you for that. Don't forget to hit the like button. Also, leaving a comment after the show also does help the algorithm. And so I do appreciate that. And one more quick amount of business before I get started. I've got to thank all the folks out there that have bought my books, right? I always got to promote my books, of course. You know, they're Bigfoot Michiganrob Presents True Cryptid Encounters, Book 1 and Book 2. They're both found on Amazon. Just simply type Bigfoot Michiganrob in your Amazon browser. Book 2, the link is pinned up top, and you can find these also on my profile page on YouTube. For those that bought it, I appreciate you. Those that are going to buy it, I appreciate you. When you do, though, Amazon is going to send you an email to leave a review. Please leave a review, because it does help promote sales and gets it out there to the masses. So thanks. I think I covered about all I need to cover as far as the advertising, promoting our conference, the books, and thanks for coming in. Excuse me, I had to clear my throat there. Excuse me, I apologize. So where to move on with this? And the first one I got 3 tonight. So this first one, this guy starts out. This is these 3 that I got are from 2 are emails, and one was from one guy found me on social media. All 3 come from various emails I've gotten that I've finally had a chance to open up and go through. So I think you guys will enjoy these. So the guy starts out, he goes, "Hey, Rob, man, I ran for what seemed to be forever." Excuse me, you guys. "I must have dashed 50 yards from the tree line to my grandfather's cabin in western Pennsylvania back in the summer of 1985. He goes on to say, "Rob, my name is Steve. At this time in 85, I was 18 years old. And as I crashed through my grandpa Art's front door, I literally fell to the floor crying like a little baby," he goes on to tell me. "Rob, I was gasping for air and tried to explain what had happened." As of course, at this time, you guys, he is at his grandfather Art's cabin in Pennsylvania. His grandfather listened intently and then told his grandson Steve about a local legend of a creature that haunts the woods at night in this particular area on grandfather's property. I know, Val, I see you. Another one from Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, my friend. You got creepy stuff out there. Val's a good friend of mine. She loves the show, but she's like, "Rod, dang, Pennsylvania." Well, we got another one for you, Val. Grandfather Art goes on to tell Steve that he reveals to Steve that he encountered what he thinks his grandson had years before. And he warned his grandson, Steve, to be very careful, as Steve was staying with grandfather for, I guess, a month, take out time with the good old granddad. Grandpa Art goes on to explain to Steve that he explains a beast of the woods, the forest, to be half man and half wolf. So you got to imagine young 18-year-old Steve cannot really believe what his ears, what he's hearing from his grandpa. So Steve, after calming down a little bit and processing what he has seen, goes on to say that he remembers seeing these red eyes out in the forest, as he's telling grandfather, that were at least 7 feet from the ground, and then behind these eyes, he hears this large growl, a menacing growl. Unlike that of a wolf, it was more shrilling and really, as he says to me, more disturbing in nature. Very unnatural, he goes on to say. And Steve says, Rob, really, that's the only way that I can describe this sound, backed by these red glowing eyes. So young Steve just can't shake this feeling of terror, but at the same time, he decides that he wants to investigate this further, being that he's going to be out with grandfather for some time. So the next night, young Steve goes out with only a flashlight. He ventured back into the woods, looking for some evidence of something of this creature. The same creature that grandfather warned him on. Steve's now walking out in this dense forest, and as he's out here, this is like maybe a week later, I believe, you guys, after the first encounter. Dang. And you hear these eerie sounds and twigs snapping like underfoot, like something was walking. Suddenly, once again, everybody, he sees those same glowing eyes staring at him through the trees. Steve says, Rob, my heart starts racing. It's pounding. He says, Rob, once again, he runs back as fast as he can, again, back to grandfather's cabin. Once again, as he enters the cabin, grandfather, I told you, I warned you about going out in the woods at night, especially alone. The grandfather now at this time says, listen, if you want to explore this, take me along with you. I don't want you going by yourself again. So as I'm going through this and reading through this, you guys, I kind of wonder why the grandfather Art here didn't even suggest this earlier. He knows that his grandson's seen these red glowing eyes, hear these growls. The grandfather knows about this wolf-like creature from years ago. I'd have told my grandson straight up, hey, if you want to go, I'll go with you. Or not go at all, right? So I don't know. So over the next few days, strange things start to happen in Grandfather Art's cabin, in and around the cabin. Items in the cabin appear to move on their own. Creaks in the floorboards were more prevalent. Doors would open in the middle of the night. Unexplainable noises and howls started coming from outside of the cabin. Jesus, excuse me, sorry. Got a tickle in my throat. I apologize. Steve says he thinks he was just imagining this because, quite frankly, he was still spooked out from before. So Now with these weird sounds that he's hearing in the cabin, he thinks now he's just imagining these things. So a week or so goes by. Now he finally gets with his grandfather, Art, and in the middle of the night, he's hearing these sounds, and he woke up Art. His grandfather got dressed, and they ventured out into the woods. This time, instead of only going with the flashlight, Grandpa Art brought a shotgun. So they're out meandering about the woods. This young fellow, Steve, is trying to find this creature, find the source of the howls. He's trying to find the source of the red eyes, along with now grandfather, and he feels a little safer. And then he says, Rob, I finally came across this nemesis that startled me, that scared me. And it turns out to be that of a bear with an injured leg, as he goes on to say. So this kid, Steve, is kind of relieved. Wow, it's not a monster. It's not a creature. It's not this wolf-like being that his grandfather was telling about. It's simply a bear with an injured leg that's suffering a little bit. Maybe that is the reason for these weird sounds, these weird screeches and howls from the woodline, right? So the bear kind of meanders along its way. I don't even know if it noticed them, and they return back to grandfather's cabin. So Steve now in his mind, everybody thinks that this all has ended. Okay, it was just a bear injured. This accounts for everything. Of course, the red eyes he couldn't quite figure out, but he kind of forgot about that at this point. He was just relieved that his grandfather's cabin wasn't in the middle of the woods surrounded by some monster. However, grandfather objected. Grandfather Art goes on to tell Steve that the bear was not behind this strange activity around the cabin. He says that the bear was not what he had countered the first two prior times in the woods. Hi, Gemini. Hello, Keith. Hello to all of you. The grandfather told him that his grandson, Steve, was now marked, and that the cabin also had been marked many years ago by these wolf-like beings. Grandpa, wolf-like beings, he says. That was a bear. Come on, you're pulling my leg. I don't believe in werewolves. Then Steve got a little, felt that he was kind of, talking down to his grandfather. So he kind of apologizes. The grandfather Art tells his young nephew not to worry. Then Grandpa finally told Steve it was time. And Steve goes, What do you mean? What do you mean, Grandpa? It's time. Grandpa says, It's time to rid my land of this evil. Grandfather said that Steve now has been a part of this, a part of what's going on. The grandfather goes on to tell him the story of what really did happen years ago. Grandpa Art sits back. He tells his grandson Steve the story. Grandpa Art went on to tell Steve about a cult that worships Satan. Okay. And tried to summons up the dog. the hounds of hell. Grandfather says that this story dates back to the mid-1900s, and it was first brought to Grandfather Art, I should say, sorry, from one of his First Nations friends, Chief Fortrax. The chief went on to tell Grandpa that the land was tainted. You see, Chief Fortrax was the first person to tell a white man about this dogman, this demon, this werewolf, this experience. Chief Fortrax warned Grandfather, the Grandpa Art, never to enter a certain part of the woods on his land. Now, Grandfather Art had a massive amount of land that he owned. He told Art that it was evil, and then if he ventured out into this land, that his property would be marked. So what does Grandfather Art do, or what does he do, I should say? He goes out to find out for himself, where he came across this red-eyed, wolf-like being, as he told his son earlier. Thank you to Larry Sharp for gifting 5 pirate memberships. Our mateys. Thank you, Larry Sharp. Appreciate you, man. The story goes on about a alleged kidnapping of a pregnant local woman who was never found. Continuing on, of course, with the story. It was believed that she was sacrificed and her unborn child was given to the forest or to Satan. Years later, the local tribe folk reportedly saw a red-eyed, sinister-looking half-man, half-wolf lurking in the forest. It was believed to be that of the woman's sacrificed child, now being raised by a pack of evil dog-like humans. The devil dog of Satan himself, proclaims Grandpa Art. For many years went on, many children and women turned up missing and unalived. You can't use certain words on YouTube, I found out. Until then, later, a local shaman went into the forest, and this shaman went as far as to sacrifice himself to break the curse of the land. The kidnappings, the mayhem stopped for many decades until back in 1974, when a local woman vanished and her skinned corpse was found in those very same woods. The investigation was performed by tribal police, and it was kept a secret from the quote unquote real world. I think a lot of us, and I've talked to many people of First Nations and some shaman folk, and this does go on. They are very close knitted. They don't want us white folk, or they don't want this out in the public. They keep everything under the wraps, you guys. So this is not at all uncommon. Very, very secretive, very quiet about their business. They police themselves a lot of the times. So now Steve, the young grandson, cannot believe what he's hearing. He says, Rob, my blood, I got really cold and chilled. And now he's very scared because he believes now that he might have been in contact with evil, maybe the devil himself. So, after talking for several days on and off about the happenings, the legend, the stories from the past, Steve, his grandfather, and this chief went out to embark on a terrifying mission to cast the evil from the property. It was late, about 1 o'clock in the morning, when the three of them ventured into the forest. They went to the very spot of Steve's first encounter. They sat, they waited. Now, Steve asks almost immediately as to why Chief Four Tracks and Grandpa brought no weapons. Four Tracks and Grandpa Art, almost in unison, replied back to young Steve, "Our strength in our weapons is the power of faith. No matter what or whom you believe in, that is our weapon." Now, Steve kind of sarcastically, as I probably back at the age of 18 might have done the same, says, "Oh, great," kind of out loud at Grandpa and this chief. As I said, this is right about 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, right around 3 o'clock in the morning approaches. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the morning, sorry, the red glowing eyes now appear. And they hovered. Again, they hover approximately 7 feet above the ground. Seven likes. That can't be right, Gary Spikes. Anyway, I really don't read the chat, you guys, but I do see some things. I try to go back and forth, try to retain what I'm, trying to tell you guys. Hi, little Patty. So anyway, he sees these glowing red eyes. They're hovering 7 feet above the ground, and Steve says to me, during this conversation, he wants to run, right? He wants to take off. Let's get out of here. 7 feet, the red eyes. It's got to be this devil, this demon dog, whatever you want to call it. Grandpa Art, grabs him by the arm and told him to stand his ground, and show no fear. Well, Steve, his fear is now growing. It's heightened, right? Now, the glowing red eyes that all three of these people were looking at, Steve, Chief Four Tracks, Grandpa Art, they're staring at these red eyes, and now the red eyes starts to fill in. The shape starts to fill in gradually. It's a shape, as Steve says to me in the email, the shape of a werewolf. Half man looking. A half man looking wolf like creature that materialized right in front of all three of them. Rob, this creature, it was very fierce in stature, huge, wolf like head. It has some sort of hair or fur. Couldn't really tell. Of course, it's nighttime. This creature's maybe 50 yards inside the tree line. That's how close it is, I guess. Steve had to keep covering his eyes to ensure that he was seeing clearly. And also, there was this glare rolling off of this creature that kind of blinded him, as well as the other two for that matter. Chief Fortrax now rises up. I guess they were all positioned on the ground, sitting, squatting, laying on their bellies. That I'm unclear on. But he rose up, and this Chief Fortrax, everybody, starts walking towards this being. The chief then goes into a pelt that he had strapped around his waist and through some sort of dust or something, as Steve was trying to explain to me, in the direction of this creature, this being, this spirit, whatever you guys want to call it. And the chief starts chanting in his tribal, his native tongue. This wolf-like creature now elevates even further right in front of them. It lets out this menacing scream and simply evaporated into the night's air. Upon this happening and this creature, whatever, evaporating, now Chief Fortrax, he passes out, becomes unconscious, and it falls to the ground. Steve says it takes about 5 minutes for him to regain consciousness. When he awoke, he spoke. He says, the evil is now gone from the land. Rob, I never told this story to anybody. He goes on to tell me, including his parents, this, that, and the other. He goes, today, he's much older now. This is when he was 18 years old. He's now 57 years old, I believe, if I recall. He says he does continue to look for and search for like Dogman. He also is very into searching for cursed lands or researching cursed lands, not necessarily looking for them, but he pours a lot of research into grandfather's property because Steve has now inherited the property he said about a decade ago when his grandfather passed away and left him his plot of land. Steve went on to tell me he believes that this chief finally exercised this land. And of course, Chief Fortrax is passed on along with grandfather Art, who died, who then, of course, bestowed the property upon Steve. Steve did tell that his grandfather did leave him a note that he found in the cabin of his new inheritance, and it read, remember what you have learned of the land. Respect the land. And I trust you will do the right thing. Love, Grandpa. I found that story to be fascinating. There's one thing, though, that you guys leave a comment later if you want. There's one thing that I don't quite get about it. How after all these decades, allegedly this all took place in the 1900s. Then it rolled forward, right? It went on and on and on. Grandpa Art went ahead and bought this property, lived there, came across a similar encounter. Then he became friends with this Chief Fortrax and told him the story about tainted land, tainted grounds, this, that, and the other. And now this Fortrax meets the grandson. The grandson comes across this creature, this spirit, this evil, whatever you want to call it. Why did it take that long for this Fortrax, right, to rid the land of the evil? Now, of course, earlier though, then if I revert back to, if you recall earlier in this story, the shaman allegedly sacrificed his body, which I guess broke the spell. So maybe they thought all was well and good up until this young Steve happened across it. So I found that to be interesting. I hope you did as well. I don't mess around with these things. When you hear about cursed land, everybody, that's a no. I found out several years after my Bigfoot encounter that the area, the property that I had my encounter, there was tainted land in the Manistee National Forest, not too far from where my experience had. And of course, it always gives me pause to reflect on what the hell I came across, right? But you guys know that. I talk about it all the time. Hey, Duke, what's up? Thanks, everybody, for coming on. And hi, Mr. Anderson. Hello to everybody out there. I got 2 more for you. I hope you like that one. Thanks for coming in. Thank you to for the 5 memberships by Larry. Thanks, Larry Sharp. I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you. So we're going to continue on. And this is a story, an encounter that I got. It takes place in a section of Ohio. The guy goes on to tell me that he prefers not to say where in Ohio this took place. Goes on and says, I'm not even giving the name. He made up a name that I think he's going by the name of Dave. And even his email was one of these ambiguous emails. It was like, I don't know. It was like a bunch of letters and numbers mixed up, and it said Curly or something. I don't know. But anyway, I got this email some time ago, and I decided to share this for this show here today. So again, this guy goes, "Hey, Rob, you can refer to me as Dave if you even decide to go through and tell this encounter that I had." He goes on to say. And this guy, Dave, I can tell is very messed up, you guys. In fact, I had to purposely put some notes on some of his exact quotes because I don't want to memorize them. I want to read them when I get to that in this story. This guy's messed up from what happened, I guess. So he goes on to say that he remembers distinctly it was being a Monday night. And that Monday night really, it shook him to all ends of the world. He even says it shook him to his very core, into his soul. And it's something he cannot shake or unsee. As he goes on, he says, and he goes some brief, talks about himself a little bit. He said he loves nature. He loves the woods, loves hiking, camping, fishing, all that stuff. A lot of things we all enjoy. He also said that he was really into mycology. So as you hear this story unfold, it gave me pause on something that I'll talk about a little later. Mycology is the study of mushrooms and various types of fungus. So this is one of the things this guy's into. And yes, I'm not really reading chat, but all the jokes, yeah, the guy was probably, magic mushrooms and all. I'm sure that's a part of this. But again, I'm going to tell this guy's story. He goes, on this one particular day, it was a beautiful day on that Monday, beautiful weather. And towards the evening time, this guy, Dave, decides that he's going to round up his walleye gear and head down to an old train trestle where there was a very nice size river flowed through here in Ohio. So, okay, Ohio, a river, I don't know. There's many rivers that run through Ohio, but I thought it was odd. Now, again, I know that people do go fishing at night. I do understand that. But as I'm reading through this, To me, most people fish in the morning. I could be wrong. That's what I do. I don't think I've ever fished at night ever, but that's just me. I don't care whether you fish in the nighttime or daytime, to be honest, but for me, it's always been the morning. So I just thought that was odd. That's just, again, it's just me. So he goes on to say that he parked his car about a mile and a half from the trestle so he could walk the train tracks. He also wanted to look and go past a few other spots along the river that he was interested in. So by the time he reaches this trestle, it was pretty much already dark. So again, you guys, by yourself, fishing at night, I don't know. That's not me. He goes on to say that he was wearing a headlamp so he could see this, that, and the other. He says, Rob, at this location, there was also a lake that was directly across the river where two tributaries were connected and a small dam ran overhead. Rob, he goes, I was there all of about 15 minutes when all of a sudden this overwhelming feeling of dread overcame him. So he switches on his headlamp. So now he's just switching on his headlamp. He turns around and he starts back up the riverbank. And he gets pretty close to a big sycamore tree. And then advancing out from the side of this sycamore tree, he saw what looked to be a very large animal. And it was kind of kneeling behind this tree. This guy, Dave, says that he locked his eyes on this. And he says he was completely paralyzed and frozen. He's telling me he knows he's definitely seeing something. He knows something's there, but his mind simply could not process or fathom what he was actually staring at. Rob, he says, what I'm looking at just does not make any sense. And this guy, Dave, keeps telling me that in the email, he says, animals aren't supposed to look like this. And I remember he wrote that in this email. This email was like all over the place. I had to kind of piece it together a little bit to present it out and kind of, memorize it a little bit here. Kept saying animals aren't supposed to look like this. So again, and then he says, all the while that he's looking at this, this guy, Dave, is getting the inclination that this creature is kind of reading his mind. Then all of a sudden it comes out fully from around the tree and it stands up and it makes itself perfectly visible to this Dave guy. And then Dave says again via this email that it's almost like this creature had given off this vibe. In his head, he like hears or gets the feeling as he's looking in on this creature. It says like, yeah, now this is allegedly the creature speaking or the vibe that he was getting. I'm not going to say it was telepathy or mind speak or nothing like that, but he gets this vibe that this thing is almost projecting like, yeah, now you see me and you know I'm real. I definitely exist. So this is kind of what this guy Dave communicates to me. That's his vibe, his thoughts, right? Rob, this thing looked just like the creature out of that movie Van Helsing, he goes on to tell me. He says soon after this weird vibe, this creature exposing itself to him, This creature kind of hunches over and makes his way back into the brush. I wasted no haste, this guy Dave says. I was out of there in a flash. As soon as my feet hit the ground, I was off and running. He goes on to tell me that he sped all the way back to his car without stopping. By the time he reached his car, he says, I couldn't breathe. He's hyperventilating. Both of his legs were locked up. He started to vomit. And somewhere in between the encounter and running away, he says, Rob, I, as he says, pissed himself. Then later on in this email, I edited some of this. A lot of it was fluff, I think. He goes on to tell me that he's constantly searching YouTube. He's always on the internet. He's looking up, seeking answers. He's on social media. He listens to all these eyewitness accounts. He knows he saw something, as he pronounces in this writing, right? He said that he had always heard of the Dogman and the Bigfoot phenomena before, but never took any of this at all serious, right? And his quote here, now some of these things I had to read because I don't want to screw up his quotes. He says, Rob, I quote this guy, man, Rob, I love the woods and I love nature. The woods for me have always been a safe haven. I could venture into the forest to escape stress in life, the stress at work, the bills, relationship problems, etc. Now I feel that this has been taken from me. I feel like I was threatened and kicked out of my second home. The only thing I keep thinking is these things aren't supposed to exist. I feel like a terrified little kid who just came face to face with a dreaded monster in the closet. This experience has torn a huge hole in me. Every time I eat, I get nauseous, even still today. I can't sleep for more than 20 minutes at a time. Every instance when I close my eyes, that creature is all I can see. I'm trying not to dwell in the fear. I'm trying to accept what I saw and what had happened, but it's hard. I'm really glad to found a channel like yours and others out there to know that I'm not alone. Thanks for listening, and thanks if you do air this. Okay, what I just read that guy has said to me, you guys, right off the bat, this guy, I mean, I get it. Hey, listen, PTSD, trauma. We all experience, well, not all of us. I'll back up or rephrase that. I experienced some of that. But if this guy, according to this guy's statement, if this is still how he is in life today, I personally sent him an email back and I said, have you ever tried help professionally? Because I get it. I've been there. You guys, most of you that know me know that I took off work for 6 months. But I also had something else happen to me that made it even. The encounter for me wasn't all that crazy, but the loss of my girlfriend was what really drove me batty for a while. But for this guy, it's every time he shuts his eyes, he sees this. Every time he eats, he gets nauseous. I mean, I don't know how long. He didn't go into detail. I don't know how long this happened to this. This has been going on with this guy. I just left this alone and told him, look, I really can't offer my thoughts on what you saw or didn't see. You got to go see a professional because this is getting out of hand and it's frankly bad for your health. I presented that story to you guys because this is a guy that needs help, right? Oftentimes people don't come forward. And you guys have heard me say this ad nauseum. I do what I do to help people out. A lot of people come on the show, which is great, but a lot of people send me these in confidence to hopefully air for them. But if it gets to this point for this poor fellow, I can't help the guy other than I'm sorry, but seek help professionally. I did tell him, yeah, you did see something. Apparently you did. because you got other things to worry about now outside of trying to figure out what it is that you saw. That's my opinion. I ain't a doctor. I'm not a professional. That's just kind of what I kind of told this guy. Leave a comment. Hopefully, I did the right thing for this guy. So hopefully he'll be okay. Last week, I'm doing 3 Dogman and Werewolf stories today. Last week, I did 3 Bigfoot ones. I tried to alternate them, but I must tell you, if I have 100 of these emails, 65 are like all like Werewolf and Dogman. The other 35 are like Bigfoot related. So that's why you get a little more of these. I guess I found Dogman. Most people find it more popular. I think maybe because it's the terrifying aspect, right? Anyways, I'm just letting you guys know how the schedule works. They're just kind of randomly chosen. And last week was Bigfoot, this week's Dogman. So I got one last one, which I find to be very cool because it takes place in, yes, the state of Michigan. And you guys know that my Bigfoot encounter was in Wexford, Michigan, Lake Mitchell, actually. And so anytime I get something from Michigan, I've gotten several. I just really, it really does pique my interest. They all pique my interest, but for my home state, I really get involved with it. Thanks to everybody for coming on in. If I did not say hello to you, don't mean that. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you're new. Leave a comment afterwards. I appreciate y'all. So really briefly, I'm going to tell you guys, I've been to Houghton Lake, okay? Now, Houghton Lake, I just really briefly to give you a little background on Houghton Lake. Houghton Lake and the Houghton Lake State Forest, it covers a little over 20,000 acres. Now, in contrast to where I was, if you combine Cadillac and Mitchell and the surrounding, just the area, it was maybe 12,000 acres in total. But the Manistee National Forest goes from the west coast of Michigan to the east coast. And if you think that sounds funny when I say the coast, because quite frankly, Lake Michigan's the east is the west coast, and Huron's the east coast. Michigan's like a huge island, right, in the middle of the United States. Well, in the Midwest United States. Also, with this Houghton Lake region, it's the counties is Roscommon County, and it has a watershed, and Roscommon County is where this occurred, and there's this huge watershed that flows through Muskegon, Newaygo, Big Rapids, Evart, and Houghton Lake itself. So very expansive. It's a cool place to go. I've been there once in the summer, once in the winter. In the winter, there's this thing called I think if Chip Up Town. I think that I don't know if Gemini's still in the audio in chat, but I think it's Tip Up Town. And when I was there, maybe 15 years ago, for that, you take snowmobiles out to these bars. Yeah, good time. And then I've been there in the summer to do some fishing. So it's very pretty. It's an awesome part of Michigan, right out in the forest. Keith, okay, yeah, thanks, Keith. Tip Up Town, very good. I thought I was accurate. Thanks, buddy. So this guy calls himself Brad. And he goes on to say, Rob, I got this. Excuse me a second here. So Brad has this trailer that he converted. He added onto it, turned it more into a mobile home. And he typically spends time at Houghton Lake, mainly at the end of spring through most all the summer. And he built it out, as I said, to make it more of a living space. He made it a lot bigger. And so that's where he goes. And my recollection, everybody, from my 2 visits to Houghton Lake, there's a lot of people that just live in trailers during the summer or mobile homes. Now, don't get me wrong, people do live there, people do work there, they have homes there, and live year round. It's not a tourist attraction, although it is more so, as I mentioned, for this tip-up town and for a lot of people that enjoy fishing. But it also has a thriving businesses, this, that, and the other. Okay. What I liked about this encounter that he's telling me is this takes place in the summer of 2023. He says that he bought this unit, this mobile trail unit, back in the fall of 2020. Okay, so he's very new. This is very new. He's very new to the area, so he's been there a few years. Brad, in an email he sends me over, it says, I do want to make it clear that he's heard of the legend of Bigfoot, but never really paid much attention to it. And as far as the Dogman goes, he said he never heard of it. He also goes on to tell me that he is a huge skeptic. He says he does not believe in anything strange. He believes in nothing. He said, and yes, Rob, I don't believe in UFOs. I don't believe in aliens. I don't believe in all these things. He goes, yet, however, I still like and follow these sorts of channels. I guess for entertainment, I guess. But anyways. He even goes on to further tell me that he doesn't hunt. He does a little fishing. His big thing is hiking the trails and hanging out the lake. I'm guessing this guy is just more of a partier. I don't know. You live in the woods. You don't like you barely fish. You don't like to hunt. But hey, if you like trekking or walking the trail, I guess that's fine. I don't judge. So he goes on to tell me that in the early part of 2023, just as the darkness settled in, he started to hear some walking. The walking was almost like people, and it was walking around the outside of his home, his trailer unit, the mobile unit. I'll just call it a home. So he put some time into building this up. He says that it was very strange because, and it was a bit nerve-wracking for him to hear this walking at nighttime around the outside of his house, because we're in this part of Houghton Lake where he resides. It's extremely dark at night, very dark. There are no lamp or light poles or posts. The neighbors are spaced about the property or the area are at least 1,000 feet or so in between their homes. Many parts of Houghton Lake are extremely isolated throughout the woods and on the big lake. And once again, from my own experiences, that makes a lot of sense because I stayed with this guy that had a trailer home as well. And I didn't see a neighbor for miles away. He was his trailer. There's the woods. We took an ATV, got to the lake. And in the winter, we got a snowmobile, went to the lake. So I'm picturing this. I can see it as vividly as what I recall being there the 2 times in the last 15, 20 years or so. Brad does now go on to say that the only light that he does have is a small porch light at the front and the back of the 2 porches. He described the layout of his trailer home, as he says. He added a addition of a nice 1,000-foot expansion of the entire unit with a big long deck on one side of the trailer, including the front and back porch. He said, really, the only light that he would get would be on a clear night with a bright full moon. So now moving back, I just wanted to give you a little description of where this guy lives, how it's dark, his trailer. So I'm going to move back now to what I talked about a little bit earlier, talking about this strange walking outside the house. Again, he says it's very odd, very odd. So this guy, Brad, says he waits about 5 minutes. He takes a flashlight and goes outside. He says as soon as he gets outside, the walking stops. Rob, for whatever the reason, that kind of further frightened me because when I walk outside, I'm hearing the walking. I walk outside, and as soon as I get outside my flashlight, everything stops. So now he's thinking there's some prowler, thinking a human being is prowling about his property, which kind of scares him a little bit. He yells out, "Who's there?" Got no answer back. He shines his flashlight all about the property. He sees nothing. He waits several more minutes, looks around. He goes back into his home. For the rest of the night, he tells me he can't sleep. He intently listens again for the footfall from outside his house where these potential intruders for the majority of the night. Then he says, no, he eventually does fall asleep. So the next morning, he wakes up and he was still wondering. He can't help but wonder about the walking. Who was it outside his house? Not to mention pitch black. Who does that, right? Oh, and for the record, you guys, Houghton, Michigan, very low on crime. Very, very safe when it comes to the human element, if you will. So he decides to go down and walk down to one of his neighbor's homes up the road. And he kind of casually asks his neighbor's name is Sam, if he had heard anybody out during the night in the area. Sam, the neighbor, goes on to tell him, well, he heard nothing. Now, Sam's mobile home unit is the same type of trailer as this guy, Brad, and he's about 1,000 feet in between each other. Okay. So he's, 1,000 feet away from this guy. No, Brad, I didn't hear nothing, see nobody. Sam even made mention that it would be kind of strange considering how dark it is at night in this, I guess you can call it neighborhood. Hi, Diane. Hi, Joe Stewart. I think I saw Christy in there. BJ Lapeer. Hello. If I missed you, I love you guys. Thanks for coming on in. Hit that like button. So yeah. So they both agree. Yeah, it's strange. No one walks around here pitch black at night. Even when the moon is high, you only get so much ambient light, right? So Brad chit-chats a little longer with his neighbor Sam, and he goes about the rest of his day. The next night, right around midnight, Brad hears the footfall again. Like a person walking. The very next night. Hi, Tyler. Hi, Chris. Like a person walking, right? This time, however, the footsteps are very much more pronounced and it's much heavier. This guy, Brad, can actually hear limbs and twigs crackling on each and every step. Then all of a sudden, it just stops. A minute or so goes by, and the walking started back up again. However, this time, It was on the outside of his long deck, on the side of his mobile unit, his mobile home, his trailer, his house, whatever you want to call it. Rob, it was a heavy thud, boom, boom, very heavy, hitting that deck, walking on his deck bipedally. He goes, dude, Rob, I'm scared. I'm frantic. There's somebody very big outside on my deck. And of course, he goes on to tell me that this side of his house, you guys, had no windows. It did not have any access from inside the house to the deck. Hey, if you're listening to this, dude, that's kind of dumb. I'm no offense, man, but if I'm going to have 1,000-foot deck or however long this is on the side of my trailer home outside, I'm going to A, have access to it, and then B, sure as hell going to have windows. That's just me. Call me crazy. I don't know. Dude, no windows on one side of your house, no access point to your deck. And I'm sure the deck is a featured part of this guy's house, right? We'd all love to have 1,000-foot deck, wouldn't we? Wrapped around our house. But I'd want to see it from inside my home as well, especially in the middle of the woods. I had to throw my 2 cents in, you guys. Sorry. So anyway, this guy yells from inside his house. Who's there? There's no answer. Now, as soon as he yells this, of course, much like the last time, the footfall, the walking, whatever, it stops. Brad, wanting to protect his property, find out who's been lurking around, gets up some ambition, kind of, gets his scaredness, if that's such a word, his fright. He tries to relieve himself of his fright. He decides he's got to go outside and face whatever's outside, thinking, of course, it's a human, but a very large human. So he goes outside the side door because, again, he can't see what's on the deck because of this stupid setup he has. Goes out and he brings a shotgun. And he yells out, "Whoever you are, I am armed." As he reaches the side deck where he heard the footsteps, again, everybody, it's extremely dark outside. He doesn't mention anything about a moonlit night. He just says it's dark, just like the night before. Rob, I forgot my flashlight. Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Forgot the flashlight. But then again, I'm not. I jammed on this guy already enough. I'm going to leave it at that. He was probably fearful, and I can see him forgetting. So sorry, Brad. Thanks for sending me the story, anyways. He goes, Rob, I can't believe what I saw through the darkness. He describes a big, dark mass on his deck outside the trailer home, standing very tall. The head sat on top of its shoulders. He says this was a massive head. Now, again, Rob, it's all dark. It's a dark mass, but it has a shape. It has a humanoid form. You can tell he sees legs. He sees a waist, chest, shoulders, a huge head. He says what stood out the most, though, about this dark, massive shadow was on the side of its head. He said, Rob, it had to have these long, pointed ears that stood distinctly well past the top of the crown of his head, like nothing he's ever seen. No wolf, no German Shepherd. He says any dog that have the pointed ears, never anything this tall. Not a wolf, not a dog, nothing. He says if he had to venture a guess, well over 6 inches. He says the challenge is maybe a foot, he says. Well, I don't know about a foot, but hey, it is what it is. And again, it's dark. He's scared. And again, you know how our thoughts go in the middle of being a stressful situation. Still not knowing quite what it is. He's there and he's looking at this thing. Then as he's staring this thing down, he doesn't have his shotgun pointed at it either, by the way. It's kind of tucked down beside his waist, off to the side. And he says this shadow now jumps off of the deck and races towards this guy. Races toward him. He says, Rob, it ran like lightning. Like a lightning bolt, a lightning rod, whatever. It gets within inches of him as it's running past him. Doesn't hit him. Doesn't attack him, but this guy Brad falls down. He falls down. And the creature runs towards the tree line. Brad gets up and fires his shotgun toward this, I guess, Dogman, right? When he tells me he fires, though, the shotgun at this being, this Dogman or whatever, the first thing that I thought was, wow, right in your little neighborhood. I know it's kind of spread apart. And then, of course, further on, as I read further into the email, he does go on to make mention of this. He says that the side of the house, of the deck where he fired, it's free of homes or anything. It's just nothing but the woods in the backdrop, and there's no homes, nobody situated back there. But then I'm thinking, well, then again, there wouldn't be anybody out walking around. Still a risky move, especially if he didn't hit it. So anyway, that's just my thought on that. He fires a shotgun at this creature, whatever, and doesn't know if he hits it. As he hears this thing running, and the crashing of its feet hitting the ground slowly dissipates. Then right at the end, he hears his roar, an enormous roar or howl in the distance of the woods, inside the woods. So not very far, much later, you guys remember Sam the neighbor? Well, Sam the neighbor, who's about 1,000 feet away in his home, immediately starts sprinting over to Brad's place. Sam gets with Brad. I heard the shot. I heard that weird howl, man. What's going on here? So Brad goes on to repeat and tell him about this entire ordeal. Now, as you recall from earlier, Sam is the guy that Brad went and visited the other morning and told him about, thought there were prowlers in the area. Now, as this goes on, Sam and Brad, they're outside at nighttime, right? Fired the blast, heard the howl. Now, all of a sudden, a few other neighbors, they start convening, coming around because they're on alert now. They heard this shotgun blast, middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever time it was. And so now, as more of the neighbors are kind of, gathering around, he goes on to tell me he's kind of reluctant to explain it exactly how it went down, about what he saw, what he thought appeared to be a wolf, the long ears, this, that, and the other, and how it jumped off, ran past him on 2 legs. So he said I was kind of feeling like they're going to look at me kind of goofy. Yeah, neighbors, I just saw a werewolf. I shot at a werewolf. That's what he kind of, can you imagine? I don't think I would say that. I don't know. Anyway, they're all convening, they're all talking. Told the neighbors there's been a prowler in the area, and this was the second night, and this is what occurred. Then finally, this Brad guy does come clean and tells him the truth, what he did saw, and he thought it was some sort of big wolf that could run. So this guy Brad, all of a sudden, the neighbors start, their ears start picking up a little bit, and they're like, Brad, we've had very similar experiences with their properties about people they thought lurking about the property. And in fact, in some cases, some people did mention that they saw like a big wolf-like creature. So when when Brad is expecting to be kind of looked at funny, at first I think he probably was, but I think then it was just the neighbors kind of realizing, well, guess what? Join the club, Brad, because we've seen similar things. We've had similar prowling about our homes. In fact, Sam, the neighbor, said the same thing had happened with him. So, as they're kibitzing outside, talking back and forth, many of the residents even said that they reported these the prowls, and even went as far to say something like a wolf was in the area, you guys. And they even went to the local authorities. They went to the DNR, the DNR that patrols Houghton Lake, the sheriff, all these officials, and they kind of turned a blind eye. You know how we always hear this? Isn't that always the common theme when it comes to things like this? Law enforcement's not on our side, are they? Turned a blind eye to all of these reports. So I guess there was a handful of reports. It typically came back from the authorities that, well, there's no wolves in this area, let alone a wolf that runs on two legs. Ha ha ha. Nothing upright. Brad goes on to say that ever since he still has his trailer, he's still at this mobile park, or the mobile unit, excuse me. He says he's still there, but he's been on guard ever since. He says he has since gotten floodlights and motion sensors on his property. In fact, so has his neighbor Sam and a couple of the other residents. I guess they already had them. I'm not sure. He says they keep it quiet. But they only keep it quiet for this, because when this occurrence happened to this guy, Sam and Brad decided to get together. And as I said, Houghton Lake and Houghton Forest, 20,000 square acres of lake and land. This small section where this happened, and the small amount of neighbors that kind of agreed that they've had similar instances, Sam and Brad took it upon themselves now, because they have a little more confidence. So they would go out and start kind of spreading the word, or asking the neighbors in the area similar. They just ask them if they've had any of the similar type of occurrences. Trying not to say that they saw a bipedal werewolf, of course, but they were trying to get information from people. And the more that they investigated this, and the more people that they tried to interview throughout this entire lake, they got a lot of people turning them cold shoulders. So they kind of quit doing that, because they certainly did not want to be outcast from their community as the weirdos. Or perhaps they know too and don't want to talk about it. I looked up a few reports. There are a couple Bigfoot and accounts that I came across out in this area, Ross Common, with Bigfoot. It's very hard to find werewolf reports. Hell, the werewolf or Dogman reports I get are from you guys or from emailers, right? So again, reverting back to the story right quick, he says he set up the lights, the sensors, this, that, and the other. He's never seen the image or the beast or whatever you want to call it. It's never been back on his property, but he does every once and again hear howls in the distance of a wolf, the same wolf that he knows that he's seen, which in fact was corroborated by other people, other witnesses in his little area. He says he is relieved. The one thing he's thankful for, and really the only reason why he says he hasn't moved, is because there have not been any attacks in Holton Lake from any sort of animal, let alone what he saw. All the people's pets and animals, nothing has happened to them, nothing nefarious, which is good. So that he loves it. He loves it there, and he's going to continue doing what he does. But he says, every time I see a DNR rep in my area, I ask him the question, and he always gets brushed off with a stupid smirk. And that's what I hate most about these governmental officials, right? Look at you like you're nuts and smirk. Although they know what you're telling them is fact, hard evidence. They just make it look like you're the fool, right? That's what burns me about that. And again, he picks up later again on a final note. Again, Sam and Brad stopped questioning other people because, quite frankly, they were sick of being ridiculed or looked to be liars, when in fact they suspect that a lot of these people know that they're telling the truth. So he says today he remains silent. He said that's his story. He says, Rob, if I ever come across anything weird, which he hasn't since this incident, he will send me a story. I thought it was a cool story. I love it because it's in Michigan. It's not too far where I've lived. I mean, it was far enough, about a 3-hour ride, but I've been there twice, and I like hearing stories about places I've been in, especially here in the great state of Michigan. Krista, you're joining a little late. That's okay. Because you guys, Krista, the Blondes and Booze will be on in about 35 minutes. So, yeah, this went about an hour and a half. I hope you guys enjoyed these. I really do. I do these every Friday now, starting at between 6 and 6:30. You know, people like them, so I'm going to give you what you want, I guess. Subscribe if you're new. Subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze. World Bigfoot Radio's in the house. Subscribe to him if you would. Tex, Donnie, Monica, our Paranormal World, Paranormal Paul. Paranormal Paul just hit 1,000 subscribers. Congratulations to Paul. And with that being said, I think I'm going to head out of here, take a break, go check out the Booze. Thank you for, who was it earlier? Larry Sharp for gifting 5 new pirates. I appreciate that, Larry. So thank you so much for that. So anyways, yeah, the Booze will have a great show tonight. I forgot the topic as always, but go check it out. Turn on your alert bells, hit the like button, leave a comment afterwards. And until next time, I am, of course, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, good old BMR. And I'm wasting time, as you all know. Krista's laughing until I find the button. It's not that I don't know where it is. I got a whole shitload of stuff in this computer. Until next time.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks, with an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.